That day when it was 113, and I think it was 95% humidity, we found out. But that lady opened the door, and when we were knocking doors, and was just like, "Guys, there's a heat warning. You're not supposed to be outside." I was just like, "Oh man." We went through like tons and tons of water that day, but that was definitely the most temperature extreme experience. So
Foods you had on your mission?
I think the craziest food I had was pig ear in a taco. I couldn't swallow it. It was like biting through a huge chunk of gristle and fat for this teeny piece of almost like a lunch meat type of meat in the middle, but it was still, I would describe it more as beef jerky in the middle. It was kind of tough. So you bite through all this fat and gristle and then hit this jerky, and just the texture killed me. It just felt like I was swallowing a mouthful of fat, like when you cut off a piece of fat on a steak that you don't want to eat. It was like swallowing a full mouthful of that. It was really bad. I think that experience I talked about earlier with the gunshots was definitely one of the most dangerous experiences, just because it was for sure a street or two over, and so just knowing that we had to get out of there really fast was probably the most danger I was in. Thankfully, I guess it was not too bad. So there's a few times in particular knocking doors where you'd start talking to someone and just feel the spirit and know what you need to say. The one that stands out in my mind the most is actually a lady that never, at least hasn't got baptized that I know of, but we were teaching the first lesson and kind of talking about the restoration of the gospel, and she mentioned that her son had died, and we were trying to stick to our lesson plan, but I remember the Spirit just kept telling us, "Hey, we need to move this," and so we kind of did a quick introduction to the plan of salvation and all the hope and joy that kind of what we believe in can bring, and it was just a really good confirmation that the Spirit was guiding the work. That's not a mind-blowing spiritual experience, but it was one of those times of my mission where I just knew that because of that experience that we were being guided. I think that one of the things I learned the most about is, as missionaries, you kind of talk about missionary age, like I've been out 20 months or whatever. And I learned a lot from those older missionaries, and kind of translating it to life. Not only from those older missionaries, I learned a lot from the members that I worked with. They'd give me pieces of advice for life. But I think that people that have gone through similar things that we've gone through, we can learn from their experiences and take their advice instead of just being like, "Oh, they're old, they don't know what they're talking about." But I felt like ever since my mission, I've kind of tried to value that advice more than I ever would have before. But for whatever reason, that's one of the things I feel like one of the takeaways from our mission, out of the many at least. So I can talk in a Southern accent if I want. I say y'all a lot still. Instead of you guys, it's always y'all. And a physical thing I picked up is now I can do this like a lot of missionaries. So one of the hardest things, I don't like to bash my companions or anything, but there was one companion in particular where we didn't have a lot of things in common. And he was brand new. I was training him, and he thought I was a bad missionary. Even though we were very obedient, we just weren't very successful. We were in a particularly hard area, so we would knock doors for 4 hours in a day and visit all our referrals, go talk to members and ask for referrals. At the end of the day, have a bunch of zeros for the numbers for that day, and he would be really angry, feel like we were doing something wrong, and that was just really hard because I knew we were doing a good job and that we were doing what the Lord wanted us to do, but B, I couldn't, like during dinner time or nighttime when you usually can blow off some steam and have some fun, we had nothing in common. P days were so boring. So that was something that was really hard for me, just because I'm a people person. I like to get along with the people I'm around. So not being able to get along very well with a companion was really hard. But after adjusting to it, it ended up not being too bad. So for return missionaries, I would say You definitely need to take all the lessons you learn on a mission and put them into practice. But your life when you get home is not your mission. You don't have to go to bed at 10:30. You don't have to wake up at 6:30. Obviously you want to be productive, but don't be afraid to be yourself. It seems like some people have a hard time because they feel like they've changed a lot. And if you've changed a lot, be the person that you've changed into. Don't be afraid to keep those habits you've gained, but also don't be afraid to have fun. Watching a movie isn't bad. Having fun with your friends, staying out late, it's fun. I remember I had a friend that had a really hard time. We went over to his house after, and he's like, "Oh, it's like 9 o'clock. I don't want to go out." And I'm like, "Dude, we can go have fun." But be yourself. Take what you've learned, and take on this next phase of life. There's a lot of new, fun, exciting challenges. So take that head on instead of kind of living in the past, living in your mission. Take what you've learned and keep moving forward, I would say.
Cool.
Yeah, so essentially like a big bamboo stick, and so you just hold it and it would just drop the line in the water and you just hold it and fish would come and bite and you come on up, put them on the deck, cast another one out. So we would go, I remember had a pond that we would go do that in, and they had these huge long cane poles, so we just kind of go plop them in the water and fish would bite. So you put bait usually on the little hook, but yeah, it was a interesting way to fish. I'd never fished without a reel and line before, so
That's awesome.
that was kind of fun.